Hey guys, Miss Doctor over here. I'm fired up. Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Yeah, I know. This time is not easy. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. And I'm glad to hear that parents are not letting you see each other. And as much as it's difficult to be in this coronation, it's the necessary thing to do. So try to maintain some kind of routine and some kind of structure. I'm sure it will help you maintain some kind of normalcy. But yeah, FaceTiming friends is a better option right now than trying to see each other. So again, I'm hoping that you guys are staying healthy and safe, and your families as well. Um, so I asked you a question about how do people react to traumatic events, and thank you very much to those who responded, and you pretty much nailed it. That when something traumatic happens, a lot of people will try to want to move on, try to kind of get some kind of normalcy, try to have fun, try to get their mind off of that. Other people will really get depressed and down, and that might result in substance abuse later on in life, or it might be, a very haunting quest for a question why. Why did something happen? And some people might start acting out. Just the crisis, the mental pressure is so much that people are starting to act out in all kinds of ways. And this is exactly what happened during the years right after World War One. We talked with you about the crazy numbers of casualties, unprecedented casualties that resulted from the new weaponry, but also the diseases, right? And Spanish flu, now it's even more relevant than ever. Because in the early stages of the pandemic that we're currently facing with coronavirus, they actually compared it to the Spanish flu, saying that the death rate is actually similar. So imagine what we're facing now, but on top of that, you also have this massive conflict going on. Just imagine that extra layer of mental pressure. So once the war was over, and people saw the devastation that it brought, a lot of people were trying to ask why, and they couldn't. For years and years before, they've been living under the idea of enlightenment, that reason will always win and prevail, and reason will bring us order and structure and will help us do the best things we can. And what World War One showed them is that reason is not really always that reliable. That reason brought us to create these weapons of mass destruction that caused us to have so many casualties. That reason did not save us from the Spanish flu. That reason is not necessarily something to rely on 100%. And reason have created in the past very specific norms. We've seen them in the Victorian age era, right? Very strict, rigid rules. So people started acting out in all kinds of ways. If you did 31.1, the age of uncertainty, that tells you more about it. And I will upload the reading packet to those of you who did not grab it if you want to look at this. So there's several ways where people started acting out. One of them was the theory of relativity, where all of a sudden we decided that actually everything is relative in this world. And the relativity is a physical concept from physics, basically that your location is relative to mine. You might be close to your family members right now, but you are really far from Ms. Doctoroff at the moment, right? So your location and things in life are relative to something else. They're not constant for everyone at any point. Similar to this is the idea of existentialism. So existentialism was a movement in philosophy and literature with people like Nietzsche. And basically what they said is that there is no universal meaning to life. What's important to you is going to be very different than what's important to someone else. So there's no standard reasonable purpose in life that we can identify that everyone would agree. It doesn't exist. Furthermore, we have the Freudian psychology was important before, to an extent, right? We talked about them, Pavlov and Freud earlier, but now you have really see the extreme popularity of Freud. So Freudian idea of unconscious really comes to mind. Freud was saying that reason is important, but however, majority of people's actions are guided through not reasonable things, unconscious, irrational, maybe some kind of traumatic events that happened to us in childhood or something else, our unconscious drive, so to speak. So reason cannot always explain people's reactions and people's actions and behavior. So all of a sudden, people realize that you cannot rely on reason and the structure that it provides as a safety net, because again, it results in devastation that we've seen in World War I. Furthermore, we see it in art. We have a new movement that's called surrealism. So paintings that are not making sense. So Pablo Picasso is one of the famous people, as well as Salvador Dali. You might have seen someplace his famous painting of Liquid Clock. Again, none of these paintings are really making sense. They're like almost, of from a dreamland, La La Land, fantasy. But that's the whole point of irrational subconscious, right? This is our dreamlike state. That's what's guiding our actions in reality, according to Freud. So I've posted some things for you to look at, including a link to a virtual tour of Salvador Dali Museum, so you can look at some of his work there. Jazz was another one. So to those of you who are into music, you know that jazz is unstructured. There is no specific pattern in the way the music is layered. Jazz is almost like, oh, I feel going there, I'm going to go with this note, and I'm going to go there. It's almost like freestyle it or at any given moment. So jazz becomes really, really popular all over the place, specifically for the reason that it does not have structure. It is free form. It is based on feelings of what you feel like doing at that particular moment. Similar to that is the idea of social norms. Women who've had gender stereotypes imposed on them for hundreds of years up until that point. Victorian era, right? Very strict rules about how women are supposed to behave. Women are starting to act out against them. And the new type of woman is known as flapper. So flappers were these women who would cut their hair short, who would wear very fitted clothing, who would wear makeup and smoke in public and drink, who would show their knees, wearing their dresses above their knees, and all of those things, kind of why they're happening. These were the ways that women reacted against the gender norms and those strict social rules. Again, it was the age of uncertainty. All of a sudden, we can't rely on the reason. All of a sudden, we can't rely on norms. So flapper was exactly that. It was women's attempt to get rid of those social norms that were imposed on them. Also, dancing. In the past, dancing was very structured. It was very a certain distance at one another. It was very contained. You would just, 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards. It was very regimented and structured. At this point, we have new types of dance, dance that have become popular. Swing, Charleston, and you can see them in the video I posted, that they require a lot of movement with their hands and arms. This is the idea of freedom. We can't anymore rely on reason and the structure and the norms. We're gonna break those free rules, because look where the rules got us, to World War I and its devastation. So really, the age of uncertainty is the time when a lot of people were looking for the reasons why the war happened, and they realized that reason cannot explain it. And if reason is not explaining it, then reason goes out the window. So technology that people created with reason, that's another thing that I posted with you. It's one of my favorite clips of Charlie Chaplin, where people start making fun of people of humanity's over reliance on technology. That maybe that's not the right thing to do. So it's really the time of acting out, of trying to figure out what's happening, not finding a reason, and acting out more, trying to break away from traditional norms in all kinds of ways, again, in science, in psychoanalysis, in art, in everyday life, in music. So explore some of them. Let me know what you think. Feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.